What is going on, everyone? Astrologer Eric Rosen here, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of Celestial Conversations from Chaos to Clarity. I'm laughing because this is that week where we go through one of the tightest portals of the Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole, where it can feel like it's going to be the most chaos in the world. I'm not going to lie. Pisces is white lies. We're in a lot of Pisces. We got a lot of Aries coming up though too. A lot of Virgo releasing to talk about, to get rid of that reality, to release those fears, to release those stresses in today's horoscope. So there are ways, believe it or not, to innovate, change your life, take gradual steps. That's what this weekly horoscope is all about, that I am covering from March 12th until March 18th, right before the equinox. There are steps that we can take to purge that stress, purge that fear, and not be even remotely vibrationally attracted, magnetized subconsciously in the delusion of everything going bad. It's just some things have to fall. And I think this is the week where some people start giving up and thinking that it can't get any worse, or that it can't get better. And I feel like there's going to be an event this week, especially with that North Node and Sun that are going to meet in Pisces. And so, but we'll get into that more. If you want to get a deeper look at what's going on for you on a more personal level, you want to get an astrology reading, you can book that link down below. I'm not editing this, fuck it. Or you can, of course, get that ebook that I did for your natal chart to study that. That's more that DIY route for studying the placements in your natal chart. And it's an opportunity to get to know thyself a little bit deeper. Whereas the deeper astrology readings that I do one-on-one, I do them live on Zoom. I said people are recording afterwards. That's to help navigate through the stars. What's going on in your life currently? How do you become a boss in your life? How do you use the magic of spirituality to make shifts and changes, whether it's in your relationships, your finances? It could even just be happiness and fulfillment. It could even just be like, hey, I feel change is happening. Where am I going? Especially as we're going into these eclipses and a lot of crazy astrology. So those links will be down below if you want to get in on that. I have limited spots available throughout the week for those readings, so get on them. So let's talk about what's going on this week. So the big news this week is we are having that lunar eclipse in Virgo. It is on the 14th of this week. And the very next day, Mercury is going to retrograde in Aries. And so this is very significant because you have a lunar eclipse with the South Node in Virgo, which is a Mercury-ruled sign, and then you have Mercury retrograding in Aries at the same spot that Venus went retrograde. So what does this mean? First of all, I want to say nothing good comes when we're worried and we're stressed out about our circumstances. It could be a financial or a job thing, a relationship thing, basically just anything in your reality that you value right now. Stressing is really just holding you back and delaying you from becoming the most potent version of yourself. You think about it on just a scientific level, it's like you get stressed, the brain's not thinking as clearly, you miss your opportunities. Jupiter in Gemini, that's starting to be squared by Saturn again in Pisces. So it's like we manifest better when we see a wider perspective in our everyday life and circumstances, and we see where we can make gradual behavioral changes that are very much rooted energetically first. I talk to a lot of people that are wanting that perfect system with that South Node in Virgo of the steps to take. This full moon lunar eclipse is going, that's over. We are ending a very long-standing cycle, hundreds of years of relying on how we strategize and rely on, well, if I do this, this will happen. And it's we're in so much Pisces energy that there are laws of the universe that transcend the law of cause and effect. And so we can't be motivated by our ego with all this Aries energy to like go chase like the dangling carrot. Like that's all the matrix programming that we're releasing with this lunar eclipse in Virgo. Now, just to back up a bit, I do want to say like very basic understanding of eclipses, right? They happen about every 6 months. There's usually only 2 of them. Sometimes there's a third one. We have 2. We have this full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo on the 14th, and then I'll cover this in another week, but at the end of the month on the 29th, the solar eclipse in Aries. So the general rule of thumb, and it's a little fear-based, but is to not make changes, not start new things during the eclipse portal, which is from when the first eclipse happens and the last eclipse happens. So this next 2-week period starting the 14th. It is also a Mercury that is going retrograde on the 15th. And so there's also that whole sauce to throw on the barbecue that's like, hey, like, don't eat this, don't choose that, don't do, and it's like, it can get a little muddled to where it can be a little bit like paralysis. And I think that would be the worst part of like feeling some really tremendous emotional discomfort. Maybe people have to go through that in Virgo of like the over analysis and overthinking about what to do, what to change, what not to do, what to engage in. Honestly, it could be overreactions like big time to trying to like force changes that aren't like ready to bloom yet, but then also sitting around thinking that there's something more that we should be doing when all this Pisces energy is saying, hey, like sit back and like enjoy the show, like bring your light in, meditate, connect with your higher self, like connect with that oversoul, God, angels. It's like it can come in like just like that, but that's, you know, for people that are willing to keep walking this path spiritually to see that it is an embodiment, like 1000%. Like that's the territory that we're stepping into. The people that are going to feel the strongest and the most confident and the best in themselves are the ones that just, they're not trying to just rely on just how they're showing up in this physical reality or the ego. They're feeling that deep spiritual connection and they walk with that, and it's always there. And even if they fall out of alignment with it, they know that they can tune back into that frequency rather easily. And there are going to be emotions, or there's going to be like crazy patterns and ways of distorted, disjointed realities that are fading away, that have been shoved in our faces for a long time. And that's okay, because it's like, just go through that, feel the emotions, right? It's a lunar eclipse. Like, it's not going to be like too heavy. It's more just like, be okay with letting go of the control of the mind, of like needing the label to see exactly like what's happening. Because the worst thing would be to go back into like another crazy cycle and crazy pattern by trying to control and like not let go of something that is a toxic pattern, is an addiction that's getting pulled out of life, that is not part of this new reality that we're going into. And it's about pulling the old reality away. And so just know that with all the media stuff that's being put out there, and a lot of it is extremely fake. And when I say fake, I don't just mean driven by an agenda. I mean like literally like it's designed to confuse people and keep them in fear. And so understanding that if you see that, you're aware of that, and you can accept that a lot of how this reality has been, that's been very overstimulated, very marketing based, very media based, the lives that we've lived that are more modern and not really connected to natural cycles and rhythms of the earth, of the stars, of more community based living. Basically, it's just the equivalent of being really over fucking stimulated, really stressed. That if there were certain distortions of reality and lies put in our face, and a lot of that's going to start coming out more these next few months, and this deals with a lot of programming, societal based, religious based, even, you know, government based still to an extent, where it's like, it's not just an awakening spiritually. It's not being the smartest person in the room just to see that that's happening. There's the integration period that happens afterwards, that is the true spiritual integration walk, where it's afterwards, well, how has that affected me? How has that affected me personally with my thinking of how I see life? How has it affected, if you're a parent, how you raise your kids, how did it affect you growing up, how did it affect all the aspects of your life. It's that boundless Pisces energy. The good news is that the areas of like where to start, because it can feel like being Sherlock Holmes with the magnifying glass and the infinite abyss of the universe, and like where the fuck do you start? It's your triggers. It's any trigger, it's anything where there's any, especially emotional projection, projecting a belief onto someone else, right? It fits this astrology to a T, where it's like some people at the bottom of the frequency barrel, and it's not to shame anyone, it's just the reality of it, where it's like that's the lesson that they need. But it's like getting really frustrated about a reality they think should be functioning a different way, and not surrendering, not accepting the divine intervention of things, the divine orchestration of things, even just the simple basic understanding that everything that has a beginning has an end, like that things come to a close. And so it's not about freaking out. And for some people, that could be the thing that's coming to the close, is the cloak on the technology that's being used to just like warp people's minds and keep them in internal friction and frustration and fear. Like there's a lot of frequency-based technology that functions on sound and the electromagnetism of 5G. There's so many things, right, that like want to disrupt the field of the human frequency, that with the natural rhythm, like we all would just be vibing up if we didn't have so much outside interference. But then it's an acceptance to find that bravery within to like truly walk this spiritual path, to actually approach life and identify as that person, and take those approaches to the relationships, to the financial situations, to basically just everything that provides a sense of safety and stability for just even just being in this reality. That it could even be the philosophy of like it's okay, even if it like, you know, goes bad, like it's okay, we'll get another shot, you know. Like there's a lot of grace that I think is like really needed during this time. And I want to say that with all the Virgo energy, it's not a time to, you know, feel so stressed that we don't want to do something and we're like procrastinating on things. I know with this Mars that's in its post retrograde shadow, it could feel still a little like trying to like get going, trying to find this new rhythm, if you will, in our personal lives of self-care, but like still making things happen that's gonna be good for the foundation. So it's still not about overdoing it, especially like the busybodiness of the Virgo energy. Like it makes me think of like the multitasking with that Jupiter and Gemini, and how Mercury rules both those signs of Virgo and Gemini. It's like split attention is really just a slowdown and a delay for a divine intervention that can actually come into your life to actually show you the way out of the weird subconscious Alice in Wonderland reality, where it feels like if you're feeling lost or like you're not sure where to go. And ironically, that light that comes in when we let go is actually leading us back to our spiritual self, that a lot of this reality control systems cut us off from, to connect to, because it was always about controlling humans to make them slaves and like do the dirty deeds and do some really fucked up shit for control. And so lunar eclipse in Virgo is about that control releasing big time. It is a pit stop for people to just really wake the fuck up, you know, and like see that if you're someone that knows what's going on, but you're still approaching your life in the same day-to-day way behind the computer and behind the phone, consuming endless amounts of information, but not actually utilizing it to apply it to change in your life, that's spiritual, that takes you onto a path of being kind to others and being of service and just basically being a better all over human being. It's like, I think that's a dysfunctional way to use it when I look at this astrology, because it's a mind fuck. It it convinces us that if we just keep being in the know, that we're going to be better or safer off. And so it's like the reality check would be, and even if, you know, this loses viewers for me or someone else, I don't care, because I think that most channelers and astrologers are afraid to just to say it, or to even just channel the astrology, where it's like, if you're going around watching a bunch of videos from different astrologers, from different spiritual people, and you're collecting all this information, and but your life is like the same, and you're not actually doing anything like spiritually in your own personal life, like spiritual disciplines, like taking you to actually a desired location to where your soul is being called towards, like, well, what are you doing? Because that's just like feeding the hungry ghost of the mind. And it gets all of us, you know, like it's so easy to get addicted to the phones and addicted to information. But I think the divine resets are always going to be grounding. It's getting out into nature. Like some people, it's not a bad idea to take naps at the end of this Pisces season, you know, hit the meditations, but it's like just anything that gives us more space. This is about space consciousness. This is about all this Pisces energy teaches us that the reality actually that's going to show up in the physical is supremely influenced by what we're connected to spiritually, where we're vibrating at. And none of this is about some dualistic aspect of what people should or should not be doing, because that's almost like one of the biggest, you know, issues is the South Node Virgo lunar eclipse criticisms, the critiques, you know, of like, do it this way. You know, it would be like a parent, like if you saw a parent, you know, smacking their child like upside the head on both sides and saying, you're doing it wrong, do it this way. That's kind of what we're doing to each other. We're in our pain bodies as humans, hurting each other's feelings basically by projecting our hurt feelings onto others. And that's why no one can win this divisive conversation of, should we have less empathy? Like some people like don't want to have empathy, other people want to have certain amounts of empathy, but the extreme is like not having the responsibility and accountability that all this Pisces brings with Saturn in it, where it's like it's finding what works for us as individuals and then just like walking that walk. To me, it's both. It's the philosophy of, okay, I slipped up, I did that pattern, I did that sabotage, but compassion and empathy for self. And that piece ripples out to actual true compassion and empathy, not someone on this extreme of shouting, we need to have more compassion and empathy, we're not doing enough of it. Nor is it the opposite extreme of the dryness of and just cold nature of Pluto and Aquarius, of just like being so aloof from what's going on in the world that like we don't care because we're obsessed with something else. It could be like, it could be anything, but it could be a person, a situation. And it's like, I think that's part of the reality check with all this energy in this eclipse is going, what is it that we're connecting to and afraid to let go of, that's probably the shackles that's like keeping us from like going to the next level? Do we really want to like repeat the patterns? Do we really want to go through another 6-month cycle? It's like a lot of this energy is really like, do you really need that lesson again? Like you've come this close. You know, you've had some near misses, you've had some near crisis moments in your life, and I know you've seen them, and it's like, do we need to play with fire again in that way? And so a lot of this is going, we don't need to force some new outcome in life that's desired to feel better, to, you know, kind of get Mad Hatter-like and think, oh, if I just do these 10 to 12 things a day, eventually it will change. And it's like, is any of that in the flow? Is any of that divinely timed, divinely orchestrated? Is any of that following a more intuitive, you know, based way of living? And the hard part, you know, with this energy this week, because of the higher levels of fear that it can bring up in the collective, fear does distort our intuition. So it's like looking at, well, how do we ground? How do we make sure that we're really clear and discerning in like what we're connecting to energetically and spiritually? But I think that starts with like, what information are we connecting to? This is really taking a deep look at the information we're consuming, the media that we're consuming. Some of these things I mentioned in prior horoscopes, like this is like this is the test. This is the, okay, before it was just playing around training wheels version, but like this is the, oh, you think that, you know, we can just like keep playing around and doing the same things because there's not like immediate negative reinforcement to the consequences of staying in toxic patterns. But I think it's more so like, how do we see that the worst part is that because we can't fully see what's on the other side yet, even though we're starting to get glimpses of what's on the other side of these eclipses and some of this astrology that's coming, that it would be the distortion of that we need to stay with something that we just know that we want to be firm in our ego because we're afraid to see what's on the other side and we can't see it, and we pull ourselves back and we sabotage. And so it's actually running those same patterns, those same day-to-day ways of living that are actually fucking stressful. And it's just been an adrenaline addiction and a sense of nervousness that ripples out through the collective, this modern busy way of living, that getting out of that is making space. You know, it would be like, it's like clean, this is actually a really good time to clean our homes, you know, like clean our environments, like with this lunar eclipse in Virgo, like, and use it with intention. And it's like spring cleaning, you know, right before the spring hits. You don't have to wait to the equinox on the 20th. It's like, and imagine it's energetically making space for connection to spirit family, both in the physical and the non-physical. Because like with all these old paradigms and programs like falling down, with there being like less energetic interference and the human getting more of its power back, more of its electromagnetic energy, you know, because that was the whole thing in the Matrix, right? It was like the fucking robot machines eating humans, like because of their electromagnetism, like feeding off of it, like in like fields of humans, right? So this is about not feeding any fear-based controlled narratives anymore in our mind and releasing that shit, and then going, that's where we get our electromagnetism back. That's where our bodies get healthier. That's where we magnetize the finances that are desired. That's where we manifest the relationships that are desired. But here's the funny kicker with this Venus retrograde in Aries that's not going to be done until April, and the Mercury retrograde, and how this is landing with this lunar eclipse in Virgo, is this is very much about how do we relate to ourselves, our reality, but especially how do we relate to stress. A lot of this is looking at, do we know how to actually pivot and not stay in our ego of what we want or what we might be chasing, probably outside of ourselves, and trying to get that thing to satisfy something within the bane of, you know, being a human, not spiritually connected, and that void piece that only the divine can fill. How do we relate? How do we respond to that stress? Are we okay with being flexible and making those adjustments to meet our basic needs? Because the more that we're doing that, the more that the central nervous system can relax, the more that this Uranus and Taurus that is kind of like the silent killer, like in a way where it's like it can kill our dreams, but it can like lift them up too, because it's trying to lift up our best Taurus manifestations of knowing our worth, bringing our best spiritual skill set and expression to the collective. But it's like it crashes and doesn't get off the ground if we don't get the momentum and get the confidence and actually believe in the possibilities that come on the other side of this astrology, even if we can't really see it. So with that Saturn-Jupiter square that's returning, it's like I think that we have to start to subconsciously bring in a philosophy and a belief system that is that can-do attitude, that is that, like, okay, spirituality. Now, how do I use this? How do I use this to have a better focus, have more gratitude, just to experience more grounded ways of like living, even when we are busy and even when we are going through our familiar day-to-day life, because this is about a different character development. This is about becoming the best version of ourselves, but it's not best in the catalog version of be this, dress like that stuff's over. This is about a full detoxification of like the ego based matrix, like programming of like what we're supposed to be, so that all these protectors that we've built from our past hardships, our pain, the disappointments and all that, that we're not living through the lens of those perceived letdowns or failures of what we wanted life to be, that gets us self-defeated and disgruntled or victimized. Nor is it going to the other crazy extreme of making the life like look flashy when it's not actually like rooted in truth. There's a lot of fakeness going on in how people put themselves like out on the media. And I think this is an opportunity to have empathy for people of like wherever they're at, because it's hard, because it's like, this is where we're meant to release all the criticisms. Like the moment that we're getting critical of others, it's like, okay, where's the pain coming from within? Because criticism of others right now is basically just like a painkiller for stress. It's like very temporary and like momentary, but it's like, what's actually going in and actually healing this true source and stress of the pain that we feel inside of this, the growing pains of this changing reality and how it reflects out into the world. And then it actually will clean itself up like pretty quick. It's like your soul knows how to like clean shit up. So this is the time to deprogram now. We deprogrammed the overarching macro theme. If you watch this video this far, you know that you have, but now it's about deprogramming those final embedded layers that are, the patterns are probably more personal because of past life situations, things that happened earlier in life, childhood, the teen years, the adolescent years. No longer can we leave something in our bed and just cover it up with a blanket and just ignore it's there. That's not comfortable. It's like clean the sheets, like get comfortable by going into the origins of your past and your family and knowing the traumas that were there, but actually addressing them and not just letting them linger, and seeing that the stuff that happened in the past that you're thinking about, that comes up, that you know was the hardest shit, there should be no question whether you're over it or not. You either know or you don't. And for any problems and challenges and trips and slips that you're having in life right now is definitely correlated to something that happened in the past. And so connecting those dots, it's going, okay, well, if I heal this trauma, if I deal with this pattern, or it could even be like a delusional outlook on life, that, and the reason that it's delusional is because it's not like spiritually functional, that it's actually causing dysfunction in your life, that those will get projected from those wounds and the avoidance, the bypass of like actually like healing these things. And so I think we have to start to look at this like, what is it that we're doing on an everyday basis, and understanding that the purity of the situation. It's a purification from the top down, from the divine, but the pain and the impurities that people are feeling and seeing and sensing and projecting it into the outer reality, that's just not the truth. Like, we're going through a reset. Like, I think we need to take a bigger, wider look at going, there's been weird shit happening for centuries. And guess what? We've been on both sides of it in past lives. Sometimes you're the quote unquote victim, sometimes you're the perpetrator. Our greatest responsibility right now is to heal our own shit. And that's a lot of what I've been doing in astrology readings lately for people, is helping them get clarity and helping them manifest what they actually want, but then also showing them how more efficient it can be when they clean up their shit. You know, and the ones that do come and work with me are the ones that are ready. They're like, those are more so people that come and work with me for a few months, but it's like they commit to, like, yeah, I'm ready. So people, it's like, I'm always going to be that astrologer until it changes. Like, for right now, like, maybe that's part of my adaptation, but it's like the astrologer that's like, hey, like, here's like the challenge, the growth opportunity. Here's how you can actually find more vitality and purpose in life. Like, let's build some structures and address these sticking points. Like, spirituality was never meant to just pull the wool over people's eyes and make them feel better and just sit with their crystals and just, escape from their reality like anytime like it feels hard. It was always designed to bring our soul strength back to ourselves, to deal with a lot of stuff that's happened in the past and has been happening for a long time and has been spread over our past life situations. So I would really think about detoxing from the media this week. Being in the know is not gonna help the situation. I'm gonna be doing it. I'm actually gonna be doing a dry fast for a few days around this lunar eclipse. I've done one before, and I highly recommend it because it's legit in terms of the history of the spiritual experiences that you can have, like when you're just not eating and drinking, and just the different spiritual, mental, emotional, physical processes that are happening during that time. So, one of the last things that I want to talk about too is when it comes to a lunar eclipse, South Node in Virgo, a Mercury retrograde in Aries with Venus retrograde. This is very personal, right? This is really personal to what's the new approach that we want to take to our life, to our reality. And aligning that free will with divine will and that spiritual connection is where it goes best. And then it makes it easier to connect out into the world, to our families, because we're coming from this more authentic, autonomous place that there's chaos resiliency. We're not doing things to try to fit in or to try to just like make things perfect, where there is no stress, where that control is actually causing more stress. But it's also going, a lot of the rules that we put on ourselves that were also imposed from outside of us with this lunar eclipse actually become a prison. And that gets shaped really early on in life, reflecting this astrology and the past life situations and all of it. And so I think one of the easiest things to do to open up to faith, to hope, to a more spiritually metaphysical based way of living, to make sure that we're not falling for some control-based rules that came from wherever they came from, that's actually making us more tired, more weak, more stressed, not stimulated in a positive way, and actually enjoying what we're receiving in life. Like the manifestation of reaping what you sow is to go back to just the natural order of the universe, of the laws of the universe, and like going with like until God changes those, if he ever does, like, these are things that we can rely on, where new science is always coming out, and then sometimes new things come out that show that the old science wasn't real. And so, as one mentor used to put it, you know, tomorrow's science was yesterday's metaphysics. And so we can test out just how these laws of the universe work and how energy works. And I'm going to share what these laws of the universe are. But it's like, we don't want to fall into the crowd that right now says that doesn't make sense, or I need to see the science, or I need to see facts, I need to see verifiable facts, because that would be like saying, like, let's study this little microscopic blemish on someone's face, but then like they've been wearing a freaking face mask the whole time and they're taking the whole mask off. Like, we're taking the mask off, this entire reality, and so much is getting exposed that we don't need to like nitpick and study little stupid details of something that's been fake as fuck anyway. Meaning that the best bet is to like actually bridge a divine connection that is, there's no medium, there's no middleman, it's not a religion, it's not fucking what you heard someone else say, it's not what you heard this channel or even this astrologer say, it's not fucking repeating some spiritual gospel, because there's fake plants in that too. The movie The Secret was a great example, but there's so many instances. Like, I think Deepak Chopra's fake as fuck, like Jay Shetty's fake as fuck, like there's so many fake spiritual guru personalities. And it's this, but it's the same thing. It's like people put this information and ideas in their head and they think it's making them better, more spiritual. But it's like, is there actual utilization of it? Like, don't let someone else like tell you what it is. Just like go back to the natural, like more ancient understanding of things, whether that's like in astrology or even in just your own spiritual practice, you know. But like, we have to start to remember a lot of what these last like 2 or 3 years were about was getting actually upset at the level of outside and authority control that was instituted, and see that we should still take a stand very strongly for not allowing those forms of control and disempowering humans. We definitely got to stand up to that shit. But then at the same time, how are we refining and being spiritually disciplined in our own personal lives, so that we really are like walking that walk, that we really are doing these empowered things? And so, in the essence of taking responsibility for your life, to see that it's not because of this criticism, it's not because, you know, I have these restrictions or these rules that I have to follow, or there's these rules that they say that we have to follow. It's like going back to the natural essence of things. And so, one of them is the law of order. The universe operates in order, meaning that with all this Pisces energy, it's like, that's where the faith and the hope comes in, is to let go and to not control it. Like, we as the humans don't need to over freak the fuck out right now and try to fix everything. It's all just following a natural order. The law of balance, the universe is immediately going to counterbalance any impact for the good of the whole. So, in other words, you want to know why the media and all this negative fear-based shit, and how it looks like it all should have like went bad the past few years, or how this week and beyond it's going to look like it is really going bad and there is no point in return, how it still ends up okay. Just like, you know, a guy was saying in the men's group last week, he was like, you know, they're all saying all this stuff, but at the end of the day, like, we're still going to work, we're still getting our groceries, we're still families. And it's like, yeah, because the thing is that there's more potency of positive impact of the positive things that people are doing that the media is not reporting, that we're not probably talking about enough, of the goodness and wholesomeness of the human spirit. That because that is more rooted in truth, it's rooted in connection, it's rooted in love, that is truth. That is why we're able to continue to sustain and somehow stay balanced through even some like really thick times. And so this is where it becomes important on the individual level for us to continue to climb that spiritual staircase and still stay grounded and infuse a good vibration into this reality, because that's us helping counter any of the horse shit that we're seeing in the world that can be really upsetting. The law of rhythm, energy needs time to both rest and flow. Hashtag welcome to Pisces season, right? Welcome to Venus and Mercury retrograde in Aries, of these placements that are saying, hold your fucking horses, don't charge ahead. Like, it's pretty simple. Like, the rest and the flow. I actually have been manifesting more, setting record-setting months, like in my business, by actually doing less. So these laws work. The law of vacuum. Empty spaces in your field will be filled with the like energy unless you redirect the energy. So why is it that we're being constantly bombarded through a consumerist culture of media and marketing, whether they're basically giving you information for free or they're trying to convince you to use your hard-earned money to buy something to keep you in this very South Node and Virgo bullshit endless pattern of where you're basically fucking, living to work. Like you're going and making money, but then you're spending your money on something to try to make you feel better, but then it's not working, right? So this is where we become the empowered ones. Like, our attention's going to go where the energy flows. We're going to fill things like a vacuum with this energy. So the easiest way to redirect it, I would say, to keep things like rooted in the moment, is just squeezing that root chakra muscle. Most people would call it like a Kegel. It's just like, you take a breath in, you squeeze that muscle that sits between your fucking asshole and your genitals, for better lack of words, right? The other one, like a lot of people want to go up and they want to connect spiritually, but remember, it's boundless. So it's like discernment of what you're connecting with, not to be scared, but it's like redirecting the energy can just be like, okay, this doesn't feel good. Let me call in my spirit guides, and then let me love and alchemize what's in front of me. There's so many different ways to do it. Like, that's the cool thing. Like, it's like being a magician with fucking all the keys to the doors, like a fucking magician janitor. Like, I got all the keys to this school that is this world that we live in. It is a school, as Dolores Cannon put it, like we're all learning. And so it's like, we unlock these doors by simply just shifting the attention or transmuting the energy. It's like we have to redirect the energy. No one's a victim. Oh, this thing kept coming back. Oh, the same type of relationship. Oh, the same work conflict. It's the same thing. It never goes away. And it's like, yeah, the like energy is just coming back to fill the space, because we're energetic electromagnetic beings. And so until we start to believe fully that we have the capacity to change and transform and redirect the energy, that we're the magical Jedi motherfuckers, it will repeat the same patterns. The law of giving and receiving. As you give, you receive in like kind and measure. When I used to do these horoscopes daily, it was like overgiving. And there was a part where I would give and give and give, but I was also like kind of desperate and like wanting something back too. I was giving to receive. There wasn't a detachment to it, right? So the law of giving and receiving is like giving. When it says giving in like kind and measure, means like, it's, if you're not attached to like the giving process and you're just doing it because it brings you vitality, it's easier for the receptivity to flow in. Part of the manifestation issue process is when people are controlled, gripping, they need to receive. There's an attachment like to it. So it's also not being attached to the stories, the narratives, the energy around the giving. And so when I started to feel it would be better to just do these like once a week, there's no attachment. I just put out the fucking video and I do the thing and it's over. And it's like, full disclosure, there were parts as I was doing this video where I could hear that little fucking South Node, Mercury, Virgo shit, fucking Mercury in shadow about to retrograde as I'm, recording this on the 10th, where it's like, oh man, not landing the message. It's like the inner critic, right? The hypercritic. So it's like we have to watch for this inner critic during this astrology too, because that's going to let us know where we're at. And also it does affect that giving receiving cycle, because if we're criticizing ourselves, we're saying we're doing something wrong, and that type of like wrongness means that there should be some type of like pressure or punishment, and then we can't not only receive as much, whether it's relationship, finance, love, all the things, right, that can fill us up, but it can also deplete our abilities to give as well. The law of correspondence: when the question is asked, the answer is created in the ethers. So why is it that when people pray, when they're religious, they can pray and 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 pray, and the miracle never comes? Because they're not asking enough questions to be receptive, to actually receive divine guidance. And that's why you'll see it in the movies, like to try to shift the narrative that people have around how these spiritual connections work, is the person will actually ask the question when they're praying, and they'll get their answer through some sign or synchronicity. So actually, law of correspondence, when the question is asked, the answer is created in the ethers. You want to leapfrog over all those fucking media horseshit, or even just the uncertainty and fear of like what's on the other side of the stuff that actually is real and true, that's like going on, but that's like getting over like hyped up. That is going to be you as the vessel, spiritually, meditation, relax, do whatever, ask the question, and then it's created, the answer is created in the ethers. You have to be open to receiving that. But that question of what you're asking it to and receiving it comes easier when you're calm and relaxed. Law of identity: every creature is unique. Your experiences seek to show you who you are. So, well, this just really highlights the historical inaccuracies and issues that come up, the wars that come up, all the stupid shit when we start trying to tell each other what we should be doing instead of respecting our uniqueness and letting our own experiences shape our identity. Not what someone else is saying, not an agenda, not a religion, none of this shit. Like, South Node, it's so interesting with the South Node in Virgo too, with this eclipse, this lunar eclipse, and also this Mercury and Venus retrograde in Aries. It's like how you feel about your identity affects your health. So this is a change in identity where it's like we're finding more about what makes us unique, special. This is about looking within with Mercury. This is about looking deeper at our value systems. What do we actually want? What motivates us? Like to kind of like tear down the ego and to let it go, and to see that it's not about doing the activities out here to become the person. It's about becoming the person and having a spiritual connection and watching your health and your outside reality just change, and to see that the activities that you're doing are naturally, subconsciously just going to change by you changing yourself from within. And it's not about being afraid to have experiences to mirror back the uniqueness of you, the light and the shadow, the good and the bad, because a lot of this programming too that we're detoxing from this reality is also bringing up people that started to feel more comfortable being introverted and not doing as much since the whole lockdown social distancing thing and the social subconscious just effect that had on us. Law of attraction. This is the one that gets talked about the most. Your thoughts and beliefs will draw the same to you. So the media puts stuff in our face because it gets us thinking and believing in the thing that they want us to, whereas like you unplug from the media sources of what other people are saying, it's easier to attract something that you actually want because you're aligning your thoughts and beliefs with it. So I'm not saying don't go ever like listen to something someone else is saying that you know, like, and trust, that's coming from a spiritual place or a loving place that's trying to like actually help people, that's not projecting their own narrative and beliefs. It's making sure that you have control of your own thoughts and beliefs, that you're autonomous in that way, that you're sovereign in that, so that you can create your desired reality, and that other people's just becomes a reflection, but also like a curiosity and an openness to see how others think and believe things, and see if you want to draw sustenance and inspiration from others in that way. But ultimately, why people that show up as like inspirational speakers or inspirational entrepreneurs, the reason why more people aren't doing something with it is because they're trying to shove in someone else's thoughts and beliefs. And this is about learning to think for yourself, and that becomes what you believe. The law of cause and effect that I mentioned earlier, intention plus action creates a return. Pretty simple. Now, the thing is that we have to be looking at where's the intention and the action coming from, though. Right now with this energy, is the intention and the action an ego-based thing to reinforce the control of something that we want in this reality? Because ideally we would let more of a spiritual connection help us see a more beautiful intention that's more selfless, and then taking an action from that place so it's divinely inspired. The law of non-resistance, what you resist persists. This is the biggest one that people that are complaining and whining and feeling victimized need to be paying attention to. If you know that you've got trauma, if you know that you've got stuck emotions, if you know that you've got struggles, you're fighting it and you want it to change, instead of bringing love and awareness to it and surrendering to it, it's just perpetuating the pain. The law of grace, divine intervention, can restructure the results of your creations. I kind of laughed at this one because it was like, anyone with a science mind would be like, oh, so there's all these laws, right? But then the law of grace, divine intervention, can restructure the results of your creations. Would almost, it almost like kind of suggests that divine intervention can trump any of these and come in and like change anything that you're trying to create by following like these other laws. And it's like, there's truth to that, you know? And so again, it's South Node and Virgo lunar eclipse. There's no perfect system. The law of love, love transcends all other conditions. Pretty simple, but important, right? Like bringing the love to the situations, especially the ones that we're in resistance to, everything going on in the world, like that's where it's at. But we've been in a reality where love became a luxury, where love seemed impractical, where love seemed like, you know, it's like, how can you love? People are going through this, this, and this. But it's like the law of love says, actually, we're able to solve that easier through the lens of love. The law of increase, giving with the intention of receiving greater attracts a multiplied return. So, you know, I used the example earlier where it was like, actually, I'm doing less and receiving more. But it's like my intention, though, too, was instead of like the struggle of like, let me do all this stuff so I can receive for it, it just became a magical intention of like, okay, I'm doing this thing, but I'm opening myself up to receiving, you know, like from it, like doing, you know, free astrology horoscopes. But then it's like people booking readings. It's like people signing up to be coaching clients, people doing energy work sessions, people, you know, coming in and doing Akashic Records readings and past life regressions with me. So it's one of those things where this is what gets people out of this South Node Virgo rat race. I think this law of increase is probably one of the most important ones for this lunar eclipse right now and going into these next 2 weeks and even next 6 months, is because you feel tired, you feel stressed, you feel like you're giving. It's very like Virgo energy, right? The lower octave of it. It's like, but you're not getting it back. It's like the law of increase. It's like, use intentionality. It's that's your Harry Potter, Hermione Granger, you know, wand, like your magic, your intention. You have an intention to receive back through a multiplied return. And it's not manipulation. It's not black magic. You're not coercing any person against their will. It's just an openness. It's an open intention to the universe that you want to be abundant and prosperous. And religion spent a lot of times teaching people that you're a motherfucker if you want to receive things, because, like in the lens, like the Christian Catholic thing, it's like Jesus died for your sins and you're already a piece of shit, so you don't deserve anything. Just be humble and shut the fuck up so we can control you. The law of investment. Keeping your matter in flow to others creates flow back to you. So the way that I interpret this is keeping your matter in flow to others creates flow back to you is basically just remembering that this is the law that just reminds us, like, hey, it takes two to tango. There's other people. Like, this isn't just about building your spiritual ivory tower, manipulating the laws of the universe, even though they are hermetic and neutral, that how is it affecting other people as well? The law of transformation, divine energy interacts with and transmutes form. As every horoscope I do is talking about this, the law of transformation. This is the innovation. This is how we change our lives. It's all energy. So you bring in divine energy and you bring it to the thing that you want to change. Your vibe changes, the vibe in the room changes, the vibe of your intentions changes, and like that's what influences the outside reality. The law of transformation really captures the nodal axis that we're going through right now, the South Node in Virgo and North Node in Pisces. So, don't freak out this week. That's just a reverse manifestation and running a terrible hypothesis that has been just handed down for millennia to keep people in fear. There's no need to really be in fear right now. This can be a really beautiful time, but with that Sun North Node meeting in Pisces and that Sun approaching Neptune, this is where it gets the most diciest, and people feeling like the structures and the systems are just totally failing, and it might manifest as something collectively, personally, like a system that fails, or a belief in the mathematics of things, like look at this, there's no way to come back from this. And it's like, but it's such an isolated metric of like looking at things to see that that's like 1% of their reality. It's not going to usurp these universal laws of order and balance and rhythm and just all these different things. That the reason that I share these is because most people are plugged into these ideas that it's just cause and effect only. And so what the beauty of astrology is that it shows us like where the energy's at, where to focus on our attention. That South Node in Virgo is actually the illusion where we think that something that happens is going to like make this effect happen, but it's our minds and our egos running away with it. It's not actually like based in the quantum mathematics of like how energy works. Like we're overhyping, we're overblowing it. It's where someone like loses their job and they're like, I'm gonna lose everything. I'm gonna lose the house. I'm gonna lose this. And it's like, wait, don't you have money in the bank? Don't you have a resume that you just need to just update? Don't you have like a skill set? Don't you desire to go start this business or whatever? Weren't you wanting to be spiritual and go do more spiritual shit with your gifts anyway? How is this a bad thing? And so that's a perfect example too of like anything that's happening during this time. I'll say for the rest of this month through the Venus retrograde, and I mean really it just keeps compounding because fucking Neptune comes into Aries at the end of the month too, where it's like it needed to end. You understand? Like it needed to end. Like I think a lot of people are falling for the illusion of that Seven of Cups tarot energy that I mentioned, I think last week, where it's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know what's going to fulfill me. I don't know. That's the catalog variety of things. Of course, it's creepy and weird, and you probably don't want to drink it because it's outside of you, it's not for you. The Seven of Cups teaches us, where are we even interacting? Why are we even interacting with the illusions of things in a holographic reality, where if it's all energy and you're the one like co-creating with this based upon the energy of the universe, it's okay to just define your vision and your dream and then get the fuck out of the way and just like take actions when actually you feel that alignment. But this honestly is a time more so for letting go of the deepest karmic patterns, and where we slip at the last second and we pull ourselves off of something so beautiful that could happen. And so this is cleaning up the irritations, the patterns, the fears, to where it's just like, honestly, it becomes like kind of like a brave, fearless, detached, like, as I mentioned earlier, it's like, well, if I die, I die. I'm going to go do this anyway. I'm going to go do this thing. I'm just going to show up. This is about just showing up and proving that we're okay, because as this has been portrayed in culture before, it's like, well, what's the best way to respond to someone when they try to fuck you over? And the answer is to actually just do what it is that you love to do and act like it didn't fucking bother you. So it's time to look away from the train wreck in the media and freaking out and spreading dumb shit and talking about dumb shit on social media that is just the ultimate distractor from creating anything worthwhile in our lives right now, and in our families and in our communities. To be like, okay, they're trying to do that, they're trying to lie, whatever. Guess what? The universe is going to pull that shit away if it's not meant to be. We don't have to pick it. We don't have to fucking riot. We don't have to shout into the megaphone. It's just, again, it would just be ignoring of what is the pain that's being projected. You know, someone said to me recently, they're like, well, shouldn't we have emotions and get mad and upset with things? It's like, yes, abso-fucking-lutely. But there's a difference between taking action and actually being the person that actually influences an outcome for something that you want to change, versus yelling at the people, like doing the thing that you don't like and wanting to burn them at the stake, wanting to hang them. That is when you know that it's not coming from a good spiritual place, that you're telling that person that they don't have good moral ground and should stop what they're doing, but you're wishing ill will on them, and you're actually being the asshole that is not standing on solid moral ground. So the moral ground would actually be embody your own morals and actually become the vessel of change of that divine expression, and everything else is just noise. I think it's time for us to just like tune out the bullshit, because I promise you this thing is going to balance out. It's going to be really beautiful, but some people are going to get confused in the chaos. And if you know someone like that, send them love, send them, good vibes. But this is not a time to try to play Superman for anyone right now. It's not a time to overdo it, to try to overfix anything. This is a time to let the divine like do its thing. And it's not the full retard extreme version of like, don't take action, don't live your life, don't keep doing the things that are working, that have provided you with stability. That it's a reflection that the earth does like nourish those that are open to receiving and creating from a place of good space in their hearts, that are just living their life. But this is the flip, where the holiest of holy karmas like come for those that have not been good for humanity. And so I think we have to make sure that we're not pissing on the graves of those things happening that we realize that there's a reflection of us that's being that sneaky motherfucker that, you know, doesn't believe in compassion, that doesn't believe in forgiveness, that doesn't believe in empathy, that on some highest fucking level, we all signed up for this experiment. We all signed up for this reality of contrast that if we start wanting to throw others under the bus, like we're no better than that person. There's no moral ground with that. So the hate's gotta stop. You know, that hate, that lack of forgiveness piece with this astrology. But it starts too with our own, you know, self-forgiveness of any place that we've been repeating known patterns, and to go, okay, I forgive myself, but now put compassion into actual true action and like let things shift and just live a more gentle life, align with your astrology. Go back to the very basics. Be the expression of what is really true for your natal chart, your birth chart. Really lean into what the transits are saying for your astrology. Know your human design and play with these concepts. Because anything else right now, the mind is not like our friend in the sense that it will be seductive, and we have to, if anything, categorize and like look at our mind and go, observation wise, and go, do we see our mind as a tool, or are we still living through the lens of this reality of believing that everything that we see and take in is real? Or is that just how the tool is perceiving and has that point of view that day, and that if we don't like it, there's infinite amounts of ways to change that? So appreciate you all. I know this was a longer one, but I think it's important for this peak Pisces energy that we're going through this week, because when I come back and do next week's video, we'll be at the end of Pisces season. It will be Sun Neptune conjuncting. We will be heading into the spring equinox, and so we'll be in between these eclipses, the South Node lunar eclipse in Virgo and the eclipse that lands in Aries. That it's the last one we're going to have for about 18-ish years, and so this eclipse did not land in Pisces, and maybe that's a good thing, because it's setting the tone for when Saturn and Neptune come into Aries, to give people a chance to like finally like truly get on a deep individual level and do the deepest reprogramming job on how we approach life that we've ever done, to just really, I keep saying it, but it is having a can-do attitude. It's not even about positivity or toxic positivity. It's just having a can-do attitude of not being defeated, because we're going to be heading into a lot of Aries-focused energy here over these next couple of years. So appreciate you all. If you want to book that astrology reading, click that link down below, and also that natal chart ebook. See you next time.